In the new age of computers and AI, there's only a few things left for us to do as humans. This is probably an exaggeration, but in my view, that's communication. And when I say productivity in the industry for everyone out there, I mean what we get for our money produces more. And that's important for everyone because we need to invest in modern methods of construction. It's the buzzword at the moment, but again, I think that's an area where government has a role to play because
every business has a story. Some are stories of survival, others of triumph, but the most powerful are the ones where resilience becomes the foundation. Scott Clements knows that story well. He started small, building a business brick by brick, and has weathered the storms of economic downturns, industry shifts, and the relentless uncertainty that defines construction and engineering. When the global financial crisis hit, his company was lean. When COVID arrived, instead of shrinking, they doubled in size. At every twist in the road, Scott chose to adapt, to diversify, and to keep building. But resilience isn't just about surviving hard times. It's about vision. With Olympic projects still years away, urban growth surging, and a labour shortage threatening the entire industry, Scott is already asking the hard questions. How do we prepare? What role should government play? And how do we equip the next generation of engineers and leaders with the commercial skills they desperately need? And then there's the future, a future where AI is no longer a buzzword, but a competitive edge. Through global partnerships and innovation, Scott is bringing new technology into civil engineering that could change the way projects are delivered across Australia. This isn't just a story about one business. It's about what it takes to thrive in an industry built on uncertainty and the lessons we can all carry into our own careers. This is the story of resilience, innovation, and leadership. Welcome to the Building Doors podcast. All right, let's get stuck into it. So I'm going to start. I always like to know where the desire to study engineering or to move into this sector started from, because I think it's important we get more people in.
yes.
And so if we know where that seed was born, then we can start to get an understanding of where it's coming from. So where did that happen for you?
The background's not particularly interesting on where I started with engineering or the thought of doing engineering. Essentially, in primary school, it was probably grade 5. I was probably only 10 at the time. My father said, "You're really good at maths and science, Scott. You should be an engineer." And it just stuck with me. I also liked things like graphic design, designing things, and the science behind things. So essentially made the choice from there. Yeah.
Did you ever question it as you were going through? Like, were there times where you went, "Oh, I don't know," or were you just, the moment you started studying and doing it, hooked?
I didn't question it at university, but I have since. And that's really because after a while I realised I wasn't that detail orientated. So the technical side of engineering is obviously quite detailed. You need the detail. And I did my time with the detail, but after a few years I went, "Oh, I'm not really sure I just want to, stick into calculations and design all the time." So I realised that pure engineering wasn't quite for me, and probably since have adapted to different roles because of that. Yeah.
So it's interesting, and a lot of people say this, and I've done lots of graduate recruitment where, they've been so exposed to the design side of it, but don't necessarily understand the construction contracting or consultancy. What kind of exposure did you get when you were studying to realise the different pathways?
Next to nothing. So I went to University of Queensland, and I think this is a broad, probably stereotypical, but fairly correct statement around our education system. It's not all that practical, particularly at university. So the only exposure was through work experience, really. I did some work experience with Department of Main Roads in construction side of things. I did some work experience in design as well to understand the different pathways, but not really much as far as directly within university itself.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then you've gone through, tell us a little bit about some of your career highlights then. Before you started your business, what were things that you kind of really lit you up in terms of engineering?
I was lucky enough when I started mid-sized engineering firm in Brisbane. I think there was about 30 or 40 people at the time. And the way they started graduates as they started on working on houses, and you worked your way up through different size projects. So the good thing about doing a small project is you get to do all of it, whereas you go onto a big project, you can do a small part of it for a year or 2 years or potentially. So I really liked understanding the whole aspect of how a project goes together, not just the design side of things, but the construction side of things, the client side of things. So from the start, just really getting across the holistic side of things, and then probably understood then that the more exciting bit was probably the client interaction, understanding where the value lay for them, and being able to sort of produce that hopefully. So yeah.
Tell me more about that, because you realised in your degree that the detail wasn't necessarily what you loved, but then you've picked up something here that you like the client part.
Yes.
And tell me more about what aspect of that you enjoyed with the client.
It's interesting. I think if I went back to university, I may do engineering again, but what I'd probably do, I'd add a couple of things to be business and potentially like psychology to it. I really like the psychology part of people and the interaction of that, and getting to understand what motivates them, what they care about. Sometimes things that they don't even know they care about. When you ask the right questions, you find out more information, and then you have that alignment to your role as a consultant on the project. So that's really fun. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool if they did like a dual degree with psychology and engineering? Because a lot of people with those technical minds and things like that, like if they can grow to understand the brain and how the brain works and how they can use that to, get the best out of their team.
We're going to probably jump ahead a little bit on topic, but I think in the new age of computers and AI, there's only a few things left for us to do as humans. This is probably an exaggeration, but in my view, that's communication and creativity. So the two things that probably won't get replaced. And so I was thinking about this. I was running on around Noggara Dam on Saturday morning, and I was thinking about different subjects and school subjects and things like that. And back when I was at school, and a lot of technically minded people don't like English, and I didn't particularly like it either. But geez, English and from a communication perspective, I think schools should be doubling down on that. Potentially, there's almost 2 subjects worth in that side of things going forward, and the other one is art. Doesn't get a huge mention in the general spectrum, but as far as creativity is concerned, that's what it's there for. And we're getting we can't create robots from our upcoming leaders and any of our upcoming people, because we'll have robots to do the robot work.
Yeah.
We need people to do other work.
Yeah. And I think you've hit something there. Like, I think having people forget that having that creativity, whether you are a singer, whether you are doing art, whether that creative energy, then that improves your performance at work and your productivity and everything at work as well, because you're engaging a different part of your brain.
Yes.
But you're right. Like, I was thinking that recently. My children go to school, and my daughter loves craft. I'm going to have to actually enroll her in a craft program outside of school.
Yeah, right.
But she said to me, she goes, "I'd like to found a craft school where people learn through creativity." I was like, "That's actually genius." So if anyone hears it, you can take her idea. She's 7. She's got a long way to go.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
This was her idea. No, but I think we're taking away some of that stuff in schools because we're not in the industrial age anymore, right?
Yes.
Like, schools need to change, because now the creativity and that people-centric, those communication skills, are so important.
It's so important. As long as we can use the technology, some people have got to create it, but most people just use it. Everything else is creativity and communication, and that's like I said, I think education needs to double down on those sides. Those things.
I want to talk about AI because you've gone there and I'm ready for it.
Sure.
Because I'm really interested. How have you approached it in your business, from a perspective, and I know you're looking at a partnership. So talk me through when you start to hear about it and there's the rumblings, what's your viewpoint on how you're going to work with AI?
I think there's 2 parts to AI. There's the sort of productivity part, and then there's the part that can even improve your service as well, or whatever product or service you do. So I think that without doubt, that productivity part, just speeding up things to do, using ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, whether that's having agents that do parts of your work, or you just speed up research, or you help draft reports or anything like that. That's without a doubt. I can't see anyone that's not doing it in 2 years' time are going to be well left behind, and they're going to be struggling to compete from an efficiency perspective. And then there's other stuff, and you mentioned it, our partnership with this New Zealand firm that have developed what we believe to be world first technology in the civil engineering and design space, primarily at the moment for land subdivision works, but it will scale past that. Essentially, that's a combination of design automation and AI. Mm-hmm. So the program, you give it its inputs, you tell it what you want to design and what to optimize to, and that's just a standard sort of parametric design program. Mm-hmm. And then the AI looks at the results and then tells it where to try next. So the AI is actually improving that, and that's really is taking the role of what a human would do in that sense there. We still review, of course, and still have to tweak things, but yeah. So it already is, but we believe in the next year or so that will really completely change the way that type of work is done. Not just from an efficiency perspective, but actually from a results perspective. We're seeing improved results because of the speed that we can do things, and the iterations that it can do in a matter of minutes is amazing.
And one of the things I've been noticing, which is really interesting, and I'd love your thoughts on it, do you think that this transition to AI replacing some of those type of tasks also requires something different, or the engineers should be thinking now what skills they need to hone in on that are going to be more valuable? So you touched on creativity and communication and, those type of things before. What should engineers in the profession right now be doing to go, okay, if AI can replace some of those repetitive tasks and design changes and that back and forth, what do I need to work on to protect my job too?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I think people are either deep experts at something or they're more holistic around knowing a breadth of a project or private project life cycle, for instance. So I think you've got to make a choice in that space. And if you want the breadth, you'll use the AI as a tool. If you want the depth, then you're probably the person that's helping develop the AI and how that's integrated into the business too. Because that's the important part. It's not the only important part, but what we're finding at the moment is to use it, and particularly this program that we're doing, because it's quite complex. It changes the way you go about something. You don't do it the not traditional way. So if you try to do it the traditional way, you're actually not getting the benefit out of it. It takes more time, and you've got more mistakes. It's just like asking the wrong question in Google, right? And then you get terrible results, and then you say that's the answer, and it's not the answer. You just haven't interrogated it enough. So similar to that, really understanding how your system or your process changes, and then how to adapt the AI itself for what you need. I think that from the depth perspective, but then the breadth perspective as well as knowing more.
I think you've touched on something there that I think is going to be a massive skill, which is the interrogation of AI as well, and knowing to. And my husband's a developer, and I'm fortunate listening to how they use AI and adapt, and that you can't just accept the code. You need to query it, question it, and because AI sometimes will make it up as well if it doesn't know the answer, or have a go when it could be wrong. So I think this interrogation of AI is going to be really interesting for people to adapt to get it right for their business as well.
Yes, and that's going to be the trick, I think. Touching on there is to interrogate it, you need to know a certain amount, whether it's a certain amount of the technology, but certainly a certain amount of what you're looking for as a result. Just like the grey-haired engineer reviewing a graduate's work. It's very similar to that. We've got to think about it as I'm reviewing a graduate work. Like everything needs to be. And if you don't have that that feel for it, or you don't have a second way of reviewing, then that's when the problems will happen. And the other thing on top of that is the question is how, when automation and AI takes those sort of lower technical roles, how do people get from being a graduate to a senior role? So that'll be interesting. A lot of people bring that up to me as a concern. and it is, but I know we'll adapt to it and we'll work out a way to get through that as well. We've got to adapt. Training programs will be different because you won't be training in as much a hands-on way as you did previously. So
it's just like this sounds like the skills and what we're going to need to know. And it's hard because it's evolving in a way that we don't know what that looks like yet either.
Yeah.
So let's go into your business journey as well, and then we can unpack a little bit where AI started to get involved, more recently too. Tell me about founding a business, the joys, the hard stuff, tell us about like where that even came from, because it takes a special kind of person to go, you know what, I'm just going to start a business because that seems like a fun thing to do.
I think that I don't know if this is true or not, but I think you're sort of born with it, that drive or not. And people that start a business going, oh, I think I'm going to do a business because I want more freedom or flexibility or more money or whatever. I'm not really sure that's the right motivation. I think that I was always there wanting to lead, in sports, in work life. I was always standing up to lead something. I wanted the responsibility, whether it's as a captain or a coach of something or in a team. I wanted that responsibility. And I liked that responsibility as well. So I think that I always had that drive around owning a business or leading a business in a sense. Jumped out and did it. And there's plenty of difficulties along the way. But if you don't have that inner drive, I don't think you can get through those things.
When you talk about, and I think you hit something that's really interesting there where you mentioned, people often say they want to do it because they think, they'll make more money because contractors get paid more, or they have all these ideas of what either starting a consultancy or a business might look like. But then there's those times that it's hard. They've got to have that resilience and tenacity to keep going, keep growing, keep building. So when you said it's got to be more than that, so you had the desire to lead, did you also have the desire to do something in the industry that wasn't being done?
Yeah, that is something that when I get asked that question around why do you start it, I think, and I say this to people, I'm like, what's the point of doing it if we're doing it the same way as everyone else?
Yep.
Like it, and it might only be little tiny differences. They don't have to be big differences like we're talking about with the AI side of things, but little things, that whether it's a cultural thing or the way you interact with clients or the way you approach a project or or being niche in a certain area. I think there could be very little things that make a big difference, because for me, the motivation is to be different. I think it's a little bit boring doing the same thing as someone else, and sometimes boring's good, certainly safe, but I'm not like that.
When you said so what difference were you wanting to make with your business?
I probably initially, it's probably been a few things over the time as we've sort of adapted and grown, but initially it was from a cultural perspective. There's probably two things. I was lucky enough to work in the UK for 3 years. 2 of those years I worked for a company called Bureau Happold, 1,000 staff, but felt like a small business. Culturally amazing place to work, very open, very connected. Fun to work at, but did great projects, very good technically as well. So when we started a business, I wanted to bring that feeling to it, and I knew that it could be done on a large scale. It didn't have to be what everyone says is as soon as a business gets a certain size, it loses culture. No, I knew that wasn't the case. So culturally from the start, having a really close connected team was important to us. And this is, and I think we've succeeded in the culture. We're always looking to improve, of course, and grow. But the second one, which I haven't succeeded at yet, is probably bringing engineering to the forefront again. So I think it's a little bit commoditized what engineers do. They're sitting in the background, whether it's behind a project manager or architect or whatever, and quite often their value, and this is an engineer's problem. This is not an industry problem. Aren't realised because of the way they interact or the way they even explain the value that they're giving to a project. So I think broadly speaking, if a legacy of mine could be one, great culture, but two, showing how important and lifting engineers in the profile for the industry. That'd be a great thing. Yeah.
I want to lean into two of the things that you've spoken about, and the first one is culture, which is really interesting. Do you find that the people so how do you maintain a culture as the business grows, right? Because as the business grows, new technology comes in place, the market shifts, what you need also shifts as a business. So how have you maintained that culture all the way through, and have you had to make tough calls to do that as well along the way?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that we've maintained a culture of openness and friendliness and fun, but the culture has adapted as well as we've grown, because, as you grow from 5 people, you know everything that's happening.
Yep.
From 15 to 20 people, you know everything that's happening, but it's a real challenge to know everything. And then you get an extra layer of leadership and management in place past that. And then again, so we're 70 at the moment, there's another layer again, so that you're sort of separated more from people and people's personal stories. And there was a time in the office where I knew everyone's wives and dogs and kids' names, but it's not quite so much anymore. So it has adapted as well, but we're just very purposeful around camaraderie is one of our values. So how do we do lots of things that we can keep connected to, connected to each other and to the work as well, but connected to each other, understand people's backgrounds. And I think that's really important when you've got diverse backgrounds as well, which I think is a great thing in business to have diverse backgrounds, because it, again, goes to creativity. People have different backgrounds, look forward different ways as well. But if you can connect that all together, it's a great result. Yeah.
And so you've grown the culture, and as you've said, you've hired. I'm fascinated with so hiring that first layer, or as the founder, starting to hire your first leader, that you have to kind of give some of that up. Tell me about that journey where you hire. Think back to when you hired the first leader for the business, because it's you for a while leading a smaller team. Then all of a sudden you take that next level up and you've got to hand over some of the reins. Like, you've been the leader in the past. Was that a challenging transition?
Yeah, look, from my mindset, no, I don't think so. Others may say something different. I'm probably fairly happy to be hands off in a lot of ways, but then, probably jump in a few times that, you're not sure of something going on. So it's a challenge in a sense to get the balance right. And I've gone from being too hands off and not being supportive enough. And that's probably my issue more than anything is to go, all right, you got this, and you don't get touched again. Well, that's a problem too. But then most engineers are more hands on, and they probably don't let the reins go, and then people can't grow because of that.
Yeah. How have you learned? So that's really hard, that balance between autonomy and empowering your team, but also being there and not missing if they don't understand something or things are going in the wrong direction. Tell me about a time where you've maybe had to intervene in the past, or, where that hasn't worked in your favor.
Being hands off?
Yeah.
There's probably several in on a project sense where, you forget how much how much you've learnt over 20 years, a lot more than 20 years for me now as a career, but let's say 20 years at the time. And someone that's 10 years experience, they're still very experienced, but might not know it. So if the wheels have come off a little bit with the project, for instance, and the client's a bit unsure and reaches out. And I mean, to me, my process there was always to talk to the person who's leading first and let them have the opportunity to keep leading and respond. And that's a discussion, an open discussion you need with the client too, to go, well, this is where we're going. This will make us stronger by having more leaders that can do this for you, but can you have a little bit of patience in this sense, for instance?
Yeah. So prepping the client as you're getting new team members and things like that as well, and having that communication.
And really highlighting to the client because a lesson in business, probably the biggest lesson in business for me has been hiring great people. The better people you get, the better the business gets.
Yep.
Don't hire a bunch of mini-me's that are just your personality and your skills with less experience, because you're not going to get improvement out of that. So yeah, highlighting to the client where this person is actually better than you too. This is why they are doing your project, because they're better at this, 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 and this, and this.
Yeah. Hiring people that around you that are better at you in certain areas and have the skills. Okay, because I love talking about recruitment. So let's talk about how you went through that hiring journey from when you started to where you are now. What are some of the things you learned around hiring great people that worked for your business? Because everyone makes mistakes early on. It's pretty common. And then you start to nail the culture, start to nail what you want as well.
Oh, we're still learning. Don't worry about that.
Everyone is. And anyone that tells you they're not is just lying.
And as you know, all people are different too.
They
so
are.
you got to manage
So
people
complex,
differently. Hence why I said I'd wanted to do a psychology degree as well, because I think it's the most important thing about people management, understanding how different people tick. Lessons learned around hiring. Look, like I said, the biggest one is just you sort of pay for what you get. If you really want a leader, try and go after the best leader you can. I think the important thing that probably a lot of people miss that a little bit, especially when you're new in business, you don't necessarily have the confidence to say to a experienced leader, come and work for me. So just like your point of difference with clients or for projects, you need to have a point of difference for staff. Why would they come to you? You need to really understand and sell the difference, whether that's culture or opportunity or interesting project or new technology or something like that. You need to really clearly be able to articulate that. And then just keep working on it, So all the best hires take a long time, I think, to find the right people and understand the right fit for the organisation.
And do you, when you're going through your hiring process as well, do you use any psychometrics? Do you use behavioural interview? Like, how have you curated it to have a bit of a process that's repeatable to find people now? Like, do you have a process where you go, just for people that are hiring for their own business? I think it's helpful.
Yeah, look, we don't do too much of that, and we could probably do more. So happy to find out what you do. But in the leadership, the only thing we've really done in that space is disc profiling for leadership hires, and that's obviously understanding the personality of the individual, but also understanding how they fit in a leadership group. I think that's important, because you go, for instance, recently we realised we probably didn't have enough process-driven people in the business, and so that's what we went out to get, and we did disc profiling to make sure that what we were seeing in this individual was backed up by that.
Yeah. So it's all, and this is interesting. This is what I think is going to shift as well, because going back to AI, and you hit it just right then. We're now looking at business outcomes. So what's the skill, rather than going in granular on just a PD, what's the skill set that we're missing as the business as an organism? Like, what's the skill set in there missing? Process, maybe it's creativity, whatever the case might be. And then it's almost like I do think businesses may shift completely away from, and I've seen it even recently, away from a PD, instead of going, what's the outcomes we need from this job, and what does the person look like that's going to take us now over the next 5 to 10 years from a skill set? Because that you've hit that on the head.
Particularly there's more senior leaders, isn't it? Like the PDs, I wouldn't read one if I was looking at it. I'd be going, this is what I'm bringing to the role. Yeah. This is, you either like that or you don't like it. That's the only way to do it, right? I can't fit myself into all these round holes if I'm a square peg. So that's it. No, I agree. Yeah, I think PDs or a version of that are important in that initial journey of your career. Of course, because it's a more linear journey, right? But after that, it should be a choose your own adventure. If you're a leader, then in fact, if you're not a lot of leader, you can prove it by not being able to do that in a sense. Yeah. And
one of the things that I find fascinating as well with the business side of it is you mentioned during COVID you'd grown the business still in those challenging times. And it takes a level of financial acumen and commercial acumen to be able to continue to thrive regardless of what the economy is doing. Tell me more around knowing your numbers, all that side of it, what you learn on that in that part.
Yeah, look, I certainly, and again, an area still learning for sure, and particularly as the business grows, you you need to be more across metrics, definitely, to be in control, because you're not as hands-on things. You there's a time where you can just feel if it's working or not, and then once it grows, you can't really just feel that anymore. As you're reliant on, we'd have 7 or 8 commercial teams at the moment, so different sort of business units in a sense. The COVID growth was a little bit of that. We were a little bit lucky. We secured a couple of key projects at the right time, but I think that was more of a mindset for us. It was a willingness to take some small risks and not be conservative. So we sat around at the start of COVID and with everyone and said, look, we don't want to lose anyone here. We may have to go down to 4 days a week, but I don't want to lose anyone because I feel like this won't go forever, and we want to keep our team together. Luckily, we didn't have to even go to 4 days a week in the end. But other people were, and other people were closing offices. So that was an opportunity we had with a lead, one of our group directors now, who came to us in that time because his former business was closing their Brisbane office, and then they freaked out and did that. And there was a couple of others similar stories, people that had 4 or 5 people businesses that were like, oh, what's this COVID thing, and started being scared by it. So they came to us and went, do you want to essentially take my business over? And so that was little things. And then because we're in a strong position then with picking up leaders and some pipeline, once the money came back in the market, we were in a great position to leverage it.
That's really clever as well that you sat down, and I think you spoke about something there which is really important, which is that transparency with your team and going, we know it's going to be a challenging time, and are you on the bus with us? You know, like, we're going to need to change some stuff. We might have to get you down to 4 days or 3 days, because it's just adapting during that time, and going all in and knowing that you're going to get out on the other side. How are you finding the market now? Like, I want to talk about where you're seeing the industry right now, because I'm seeing such a mixed bag, right? Because we work across urban infrastructure and transport, and then construction on the build side. So tell me what you're feeling as a business in the market right now.
It feels like we're on, the mouse on the wheel, going around and around a little bit. It felt like that last year to an extent too, and it did pick up early this year, but now there's this little sort of pause. It feels again. I think it's a little bit of a function of the times, in a sense that things cost so much to build that it's very difficult to get them to work from a feasibility, particularly the private side of things.
What role does government have to play with supporting the sector?
What role would I like them to play?
Yes, please. Because I think we need to talk about it, because, I mean, sometimes I go, if it's sort of, a lot of this stuff is under the radar and not really widely publicised in the media.
Yeah. And to your first point there about Qantas and the banks would come into this, that there is businesses here that are too big to fail, aren't they? They get to a point where they're so important for our economy or services that government won't let them fail. Unfortunately, no construction businesses in that pot. They just aren't. No. And they probably never will be. You could argue whether they should be or not. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I'm not sure that the other businesses should be in that pot. I think that's part of a strong market, is to allow some failure. Like Paul Keating's the recession we had to have. Well, the recessions create productivity, because it's almost like the forest fire, getting rid of the old brush growth so that new stuff can come through, and that's how it should work. But government, what I'd like them to play, I think that they could do more from a holistic industry perspective. So it's particularly, there's probably 2 things in there. There's probably one in technology and one in labour shortages. So I think truly there's probably the 2 biggest levers as far as productivity in the industry. And productivity, when I say productivity in the industry, for everyone out there, I mean what we get for our money produces more. And that's important for everyone, because that's what drives house prices, that's what drives construction prices of anything. And if we don't get more productivity, we will keep paying more for things. I want to get that point across because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just productivity. Who cares? Well, no, it affects everyone. It affects everyone that wants a house. Everyone wants to stay somewhere or rent a house even.
Yeah.
So on the labour side of things, I think it's only really federal government. The state governments do a little bit. The federal government needs to look at more positive immigration for labour skill shortages. We've probably missed an opportunity a couple of years ago when they fast tracked some particular immigration and missed construction off it. And I think that they could partner with the private sector to probably do that en masse and maybe even create a pool of resources that different construction companies can tap into, particularly something like Southeast Queensland with the boom that's about to happen. If we just do it, if each different business does their own thing, I don't think we'll really move the needle. They'll help, but it won't move the needle of 2 people in that business, 2 people in that business. We need tens of thousands.
What are your thoughts around, so we have engineers, qualified engineers working as taxi drivers and Uber drivers and things like that. So the other problem we have is with the immigration side of it is then sometimes, and I know this being on this side of it, is then them finding work because of the overseas experience and things like that. How do we bridge that gap too and go, okay, if we're bringing over, and having sponsorship and which we're going to need, how do we support them to, get them to understand working, and get them those opportunities on Australian projects?
Yeah, well, why can't that be part of the whole program of immigration, upskilling, accreditations?
Yep.
It's not, none of this is rocket science.
No.
It just takes some human, maybe a little bit of risk from a political capital perspective, I think, is probably the biggest reason it's not happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't really take that much money, not compared to what you think we're spending in other areas. It's I think it just says we're in a crisis essentially, right? Like the housing prices are nuts, the construction costs are still going up. In Southeast Queensland, it's going to keep going up without a doubt by a long way if we don't solve it. So do what you would in a crisis, do what you did in COVID and make a decision and do something bold. And it might not work as the way it wanted, but it's better than doing nothing.
Are we going to still have, just your thoughts around it, are we still going to have a skills shortage if we really adapt and introduce AI? Do you think there's still going to be a skills shortage if we start to leverage that tool?
Yeah, well, it depends on what skills we're talking about, I guess. But look, I think there's an opportunity there. It's probably back, talk of productivity and new technology is the second part of it. I think definitely we need to be more efficient. We need to leverage more computers and AI side of things. We need to invest in modern methods of construction. It's the buzzword at the moment, but again, I think that's an area where government has a role to play because margins in construction are so low. Construction companies don't want to spend huge amounts of money investing in new ways of construction. They just can't. They'll go broke.
Yeah.
So again, why can't government partner with industry to really invest in that? And we've got an opportunity to jump forward very quickly in that space. And I'll use the analogy there of Quantum. So Queensland government and federal government invested $470 million each into the quantum computing facility here at Brisbane Airport. So almost $1 billion was invested into that. No, I actually think hopefully it's a great investment. Only time will tell, but it's a great idea to say, let's try and lead the world in quantum computing because that'll only pay itself back for the whole of the country. And why can't we do the same thing in modern methods of construction? Why can't the government, if they've got $1 billion to spend there jointly, why can't they partner with industry to do the same thing in a couple of facilities that bring forward modern methods of construction that all the major builders can tap into, and then that will go through to tier 2s and tier 3s and whatnot as well. So,
because I think it starts to solve some problems. I've got one of my clients, and it's blown my mind recently, and they will offer whatever the person asks, they offer 20 grand more. They're the only client I've ever seen do it, and they always do it. And there's no haggling. The person's delighted. And so it sounds right. It sounds like not a great financial decision, right? You think, oh, no, it's like they're getting the best of the best people because they're going, okay, this is what you're on. I'm going to offer you 20K more. So it's interesting, as we have technology that improves productivity, it then means, and it leans into what you said before, then we've got more budget to pay a little bit more for those people that are like high performers. So like, and really skilled at communicating with clients, creativity, adapting to market conditions, all of the things you've been speaking about as well.
Yeah.
So I think AI, as well as and technology, is going to open up opportunities for businesses that embrace it to go, okay, if I can save some productivity here, it gives me a little bit more budget to spend here. That's going to win me more work, get us more clients.
That's right. Yep.
Turn the needle in profit.
The self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Just keeps rolling through. That's why we're so excited by the partnership we have with Civics, the New Zealand businesses. It's taking what we'd normally do in 12 weeks down to 6 weeks. So the people are saving half that time, and then they can. There's two parts of it. One, as you said, we should be able to we will be able to afford to pay them more, but also we can pay them more to do less repetitive tasks and more high value tasks. So they actually get more enjoyment out of the job as well, because they're creating the value for clients. They're getting to spend more time thinking about how to do that rather than doing the things like pressing the button that's more manual based.
And if you think about it, like there's a formula that they talk about for engagement, which is competence, clarity, and autonomy. So for a person, generally, they look at from an organisational design perspective, they need those three things. So if you think about that, they've got role clarity in terms of what is expected of them. They'll feel competent in what they're doing because they can outsource all the repetitive stuff they don't want to do. And then the autonomy, they'll get that because. So I think when you think of AI, instead of thinking of it as replacing jobs, thinking of it as augmenting jobs.
Yeah, and that's the discussion we had when we first started implementing this with a couple of key seniors. And I said, look, just wait. I think you'll find that you're really, scared at first, but I think you'll really like this because you'll spend more time doing that. And I had that conversation again a couple of months ago with the same individual. It was 8 months ago that we first talked about it, and he reached out to me 2 months ago and said, look, I know what you're saying now. I get it. I can do more of this that I really like doing, that is the big value stuff.
Yeah. I was one of those people because we just moved to a new software, an AI integrated sourcing tool. And I was one of those people who was like, oh, I don't know, we're working well. Why would we change it? And then one of my team really, really pushed and said, trust me. And I feel like I had that moment recently as well. I was like, it does make it quicker because then you've got more time for the high value tasks because the back end stuff and the collating of, for us, it's sourcing and getting phone numbers and all that sort of stuff is like, lightning speed, so much quicker. And you don't realize how much time you spend doing those tasks.
And imagine if you hadn't have done that, what in 2 years, if you're still not doing it, how far behind you are from everyone else.
I know. So it is interesting. So in terms of the sector, right? Like you've built a business, you're now doing AI. What's the legacy you want to leave for the work that you're doing?
The legacy. Yeah, I think being different is important for me anyway. And I think if we could, as I said before, bring up the value of engineers in the minds of people, I think that would be a great legacy more broadly. From a personal perspective, that I was fun to work with, a good leader, and hopefully a little bit of inspiration along the way. I really like connecting with people. I like, from a personal perspective, I love Brisbane. I want to be part of helping improve Brisbane's future as well. So I do some work in that space. That's sort of not paid work. And if I could look back in a few years' time and achieve that, I'd be pretty happy.
And personally, you don't want to you got any plans, from a legacy point of view, family-wise or fitness-wise as well?
I'm doing the Noosa triathlon again. I don't know how many, 6 or so times.
I had a funny feeling you might mention that, so I was like, there's some fitness goals in there too. Yeah.
Look, it'd be great. I see fit people are in the later edges of their career, and I'm like, that's great that you managed to keep that. So I'm very happy if I can keep my fitness going and be mobile and somewhat youthful when I'm older. That'd be great, and because you need that's probably the big thing about business. You need the energy. You just need to have that energy, however you get it. you can't turn up for a week without energy. It just doesn't work.
No, you're right. And you came bright and early after a grand final yesterday for an 8 a.m. podcast. So you clearly got energy.
Yeah. Early gym session at 5:15 this morning.
I know.
So
There you go. It all works together. Look, we're going to go into the rocket round now, which is just a bit of fun, just to learn more about you as a person as well, outside of the business and the leader. So the first question is coffee or wine?
Ooh.
I know, right?
That's a tough one. This rocket round's going to take a long time if they're all like that. Wine.
Wine. Why would you pick wine over coffee?
Because there's so much more breadth of wine that you can get into, and all sorts of different things that you can try and experience. So,
yeah. Cats or dogs?
Oh, well, I would have said dogs, but we've got a cat that adopted us.
Oh, what? Tell me that.
So, yeah, we just had our second child, who is now 13 years old, and this cat just turned up at our house. Hung around for a bit, was getting skinnier and skinnier because we said, don't feed it. And then we fed her and checked if she was chipped, and she wasn't. So, 13 years on, and she's still around.
Wow. Yeah. They actually say as well that cats choose you. That's meant to be a thing, apparently. So it sounds like that's happened.
She chose us.
She chose you. Yep. Favorite holiday destination?
Well, probably Northern New South Wales is great. I think we've been to Cabarita 5 or 6 years in a row. We didn't go last year, but love that sort of area.
Are you a resorter or a camper?
Oh, we're both. I could do both. Yeah, can do all of it, to be honest.
Can go either way.
Yep.
Awesome. And podcasts that you listen to as well.
To be honest, not a huge amount regularly, but lots of. If anything comes up of recommendations, I'll always try it. Mostly to do with business. So,
yeah. And what is your favorite holiday destination?
Got that one? Holiday?
Oh yeah, we just did that. Oh my gosh!
I can pick another one.
What makes you feel like you're home?
What makes them?
It's meant to be a thinking question.
Oh, I don't know. What makes me feel like I'm home? Probably just having family around.
Yeah. And family, your kids, your cat.
The kids, wife, 3 boys and cat. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. 3 boys.
Yep.
How old are your boys?
16, 13, 10.
Any holes in the wall, or have they been pretty?
Oh, plenty. Yeah. Our youngest, Joey, he's a destroyer. So by the time he was 2 years old, he'd already destroyed more than anyone else had put together. Golf balls through TVs.
Oh, wow.
Broken windows, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's always one. And that's why I always, whenever anyone has 3, 4, because my husband had 5 boys, I used to go to their house and, when we were visiting, because there was a bit of an age difference, I'd be like, why is there a hole in the wall? And Mum's like, I don't know.
I know.
And there was the trampoline and the flips and the broken arms, all that sort of stuff as well. So, look, thank you so much for coming on as a guest. I think it was a really interesting discussion. And I think we talked a lot about AI and integrating that into businesses, which I think a lot of people are looking at, going forward, and building culture and things like that as well. So thank you for sharing honestly your business journey, and also, if people want to learn more around you and this technology as well in your business, how can they find you? What's the best platform for them to do that?
Yeah, look, certainly can reach out to through our website and get in contact. There's a landing page there specifically around this particular software that we're using at the moment. But reach out and we can do demonstrations and all sorts of stuff if of interest. Yeah,
amazing. Look, I can't wait to see what happens in that space. Maybe we'll have to have a catch-up podcast episode in the next couple of years and see where the business lands up.
Yep. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of lessons learned along the way, without a doubt. You can't do something new without breaking a few things and learning and whatnot. So. No, thanks for having us on the podcast.
Yeah,
it's
thanks
been great.
for coming. No, really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming as a guest.
Cheers. Thank you.
And as always, listen, subscribe, rate, review. And if you know there's someone out there that needs to hear this episode or will take something away from it, please share the episode. I get a lot of comments from people that have had someone share the episode with them and then have continued to listen. So I appreciate all your support, and let's continue to shed light on the construction and engineering sector. If this episode gave you new insights, don't let them go to waste. Take action, apply them. And if you want more insider strategies from the best in construction and infrastructure, make sure to subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the leaders who open the most doors aren't waiting for opportunities, they're building them.